Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Here Goes Everything.
My name is Brianna,
And my name is Barbara.
and welcome to episode 3, Mastering Your Emotions.
Before we get started, we would like to provide a trigger warning. Some of the topics that we will be discussing contain sensitive material that may be triggering and uncomfortable to sit through.
With that being said, let's all take a deep breath. And let's jump right in. Today we will talk about understanding your emotions and getting to know how emotions function in your life, as well as knowing what it means to have a strong emotional vocabulary.
It is important to note that emotions run throughout your entire life. Oftentimes, it is unconsciously. Because we have lacked being taught to prioritize understanding our emotions, they often live in the shadows of our actions. For this reason, we continue to lead with self-destructive behaviors without knowing why. For this reason, we continue to hurt others. It is highly important that we learn to identify and to correctly label our emotions so that we can both understand and manage them in such a way that will allow us to live a healthy life. Emotions are what generate our behaviors. Without understanding them, we are unable to generate positive and healthy behaviors. This in itself is what leads to the destruction of society. It plays such an important role in maintaining a peaceful society. It also plays a significant role in being able to achieve success and true fulfillment.
Wow, that was a lot to take in. I'm honestly just speechless right now. I'm like, okay.
And it took a lot to say it too.
One thing I would like to add is Barbara and I have been taking the time to study emotions. While doing this, we learned that the reason why so many people have a difficult time understanding their emotions is primarily because many people today have a very limited emotional vocabulary.
Yes, and having poor emotional vocabulary can very well limit the way we feel too. Because of this, we are unable to properly articulate the emotions that we are experiencing. This can cause a lot of issues in your everyday life. Because we are unconscious to what is occurring in our bodies, we are also oblivious to how emotions are controlling our lives and our relationships with others. This prevents us from being able to navigate the world in a healthy way. Having a rich diversity of emotions that we are able to not only feel but identify allows us to assign more specific and accurate labels to the feelings that we are experiencing in our bodies throughout different situations. It is of utmost importance that we build, practice, and strengthen our emotional vocabulary. It is a pivotal role in reaching self-awareness, inner peace, and hopefully world peace one day. All it takes is having the desire to learn how your emotions function and being aware of how relevant they are in our daily life.
I actually happen to have a really great example when it comes to this. I've been attending therapy for about 2 years now, and every time I would speak to my therapist about my emotions, I would say that I was feeling happy, sad, or frustrated. That's it. Just 3 emotions. I didn't have a strong emotional vocabulary, so one day she explained to me how feeling upset or frustrated was not a primary emotion and continued to ask me how I felt. During that moment, I remember feeling really frustrated and misunderstood. I had just explained to her how I felt, but she didn't seem to understand it. What she did next changed my life drastically. She drew an iceberg with the tip outside of the surface and the remainder of the iceberg below the surface. So kind of think of Titanic. When someone is feeling upset, the only thing others can see is the tip of the iceberg. But what many people fail to understand is that there are so many emotions below the surface that lead to this frustration. The iceberg is built from the bottom up. just like our emotions. After drawing this out and explaining it to me, my therapist proceeded to ask me how I felt one last time. I sat there for several minutes before realizing I was not feeling frustrated. I was feeling hurt, betrayed, and resentful. For the first time in years, I was able to find the words to describe the feeling of frustration in a more specific manner. This was the very first time that I was truly able to recognize my emotions. Since that day on, I have felt determined to teach others the importance of understanding one's emotions, and I've also prioritized expanding my own emotional vocabulary.
It's amazing because not only have you expanded your emotional vocabulary, but in the process, you have also expanded your emotional intelligence. One of the greatest character traits that correlates with success and fulfillment in life is actually emotional intelligence. It's interesting because most people use one's IQ score in order to determine their level of intelligence and also to determine their ability and chances of succeeding in life. But we ignore the fact that it isn't about logical intelligence, but about emotional intelligence. Lacking strong emotional intelligence is what drastically delays our path towards success and fulfillment.
Exactly. I love how you mentioned the fact that lacking strong emotional intelligence is what significantly delays one's path towards success and fulfillment. Lacking emotional intelligence is one of the main factors that prevents us from moving forward in life. For this reason, it is important to consider that lacking strong emotional intelligence can lead to feeling the need to always be right. People with a low EQ often argue a point to death while refusing to listen to what anybody else has to say. They also blame others for their problems, struggle with poor coping skills, and tend to have emotional outbursts. Many people with low emotional intelligence also tend to be oblivious to others' feelings and are surprised when someone is angry at them. Some important key factors that Barbara and I discovered while studying emotional intelligence is that people with a low EQ tend to behave intensely. For example, they might make a joke right after an event, a tragic event, such as, like a funeral. And if you react to their out-of-line response, they act as if you're being overly sensitive.
Yes, and for this reason, I would like to specifically highlight the importance of young boys and men understanding their emotions. Because we live in a society where it is shameful for males to be expressive of their emotions, they struggle a lot more with understanding them and managing them in a healthy manner as well. As Brianna mentioned, people with low emotional intelligence behave intensely and with significant amount of impulse. This is due to anger and frustration that builds up within them. Some of the factors that contribute to this unhealthy buildup of emotions are the lack of understanding of emotions, but more importantly, the encouragement that comes from society for males to be quote-unquote strong or tough. It is the fact that males being angry individuals is socially acceptable, as if it is a part of their DNA to be aggressive, as if it cannot be altered. But let's not combine strength and quote-unquote manliness with anger. They are not on the same boat. It takes strength to overcome anger. It takes being a respectable man, a respectable person, to look inward and to correct any kind of unhealthy behavior. It is a sign of maturity, emotional maturity. The moment we make ourselves responsible for our emotions is the moment that we start taking responsibility for our actions, especially when we are harming others. Young boys and men being angry is not normal. It is not okay. It is a clear sign of the suppression of their primary emotions: hurt, embarrassment, exhaustion, insecurity, etc.
This actually makes me think of the harmful saying, boys will be boys. I grew up listening to this phrase a lot when I was younger and it came down to my nephews. There were times when they would have a disagreement, and next thing I'd know, they'd start having a physical fight. I'd panic and I would call my sister to put an end to this behavior. However, she would mostly respond with, boys will be boys. Let them fight it out. They'll figure it out. Looking back on it, the right thing to do in this scenario would have been to prevent my nephews from continuously physically hurting one another. Instead, they should have been encouraged to express their emotions to each other. Now, I don't want to get into any specific details regarding names, but I do believe that some of my nephews currently struggle with anger issues for this very reason. They were never encouraged to be vulnerable and tune in with their emotions. Instead, they were taught to hold their emotions in, only allowing their emotions to turn into anger, and then they were encouraged to just fight it out and let it out.
It is terrible that society has educated males to lead with anger and self-destructive behaviors. It is very problematic for society. It is problematic for young boys that are trying to navigate the world. Unfortunately, it is what leads to a strong lack of emotional awareness and intelligence in males, which then leads to young boys and men committing suicide. Yes, males suffer too. We need to recognize it. We need to recognize these unhealthy behaviors when they are present. These self-destructive behaviors are a cry for help. Statistics do not lie. The suicide rate among males is approximately 3.5 times higher than among females. We have to ask ourselves why. This is why. Men are also very emotional beings. The suppression of their primary emotions is hurting them. To our male listeners, your feelings matter too. Don't allow society, your family, or anyone to rip that away from you. You are human. It is okay to feel. It is okay to express yourself. It takes courage to be your true, authentic self, and that is an emotional being. Practice self-care by allowing yourself to feel and to understand your emotions. It is so important.
Wow, I'm just taking all that in. But yes, everything you're saying is 100% true. It's so important for males to tune into their emotions in order to understand them. We are all emotional beings, both male and female, and this is such an important key factor.
Yes, and along with self-destruction comes hurting others too. This lack of awareness is hurting society in the process, as I mentioned previously. It is also hurting women especially. Phrases like boys will be boys or men will be men are what is enabling both young boys and men to physically assault, rape, and murder women. This is what is enabling males to believe that it is okay to resolve issues with people of the same sex through physical violence as well. This is why there is domestic abuse within relationships. Let's stop instilling these false beliefs into people's minds. Be a part of the change. Falling into the narrative of boys will be boys or men will be men keeps them from taking accountability for their actions. It tells them to not show any kind of vulnerability. But vulnerability is healthy. It is what can help change these negative behaviors.
I love that. Especially where you mentioned that these narratives that state boys will be boys or men will be men keeps them from taking accountability for their actions. It's so true. When we fall into these narratives, we enable them instead of telling them, hey, what you're doing is not okay. I actually took a moment to Google the definition of boys will be boys while you were speaking, and what I saw is everything that you're saying now. The definition states the following. Boys will be boys is a phrase used to express the view that mischievous or childish behavior is typical of boys or young men and should not cause surprise when it occurs, again, excusing and enabling their bad behaviors.
Yes, and this is exactly what doesn't allow room for change. This is already very much a male-dominated world. And I think that men taking this kind of initiative can create a shift in how society is for both men and women. It can rewrite the story that is oppressing both males and females. It can change the experience of both sexes. It can bring more positivity to this world. It can create a more balanced world for all of us. I think that the reason there is such a big imbalance between women and men is very well because a lot of males lack emotional awareness. It is in that same lack of emotional awareness and intelligence that hinders them from not understanding others, women mostly, creating a sense of superiority over women. This puts a lot of pressure on women. A lot of us are also not wanting to show our emotions due to society telling us that it is a weakness. I don't think a lot of men realize how much pressure women live with when it comes to having to prove themselves, especially in the workplace. We are often shamed and belittled throughout many circumstances. It is disappointing to see that the way males tend to express themselves is far more widely accepted compared to how most women express themselves. Whether it be through simply expressing what they are thinking and feeling, whether it's through crying, and so forth. Whereas crying is seen as weakness in women, behaviors that are triggered by anger are respected in men. Again, we are all emotional beings, but we need to learn to regulate our emotions in the correct way. We need to stop shaming both males and females for being emotional. The focus should be on how to understand our emotions so that we can regulate them in a way that doesn't affect others. It's sad to see that women are often stereotyped and seen as quote-unquote over-emotional. Although there is definitely a wrong way to respond to your emotions, being emotional in itself is not a sign of weakness. Being emotional is a strength. It is what makes us more aware of ourselves. It is what allows us to be vulnerable, which is highly necessary for us to be able to be compassionate and understanding of others. We have to think about how we choose to respond to our emotions.
I'm just like, okay. I'm taking it all in. But honestly,
taking deep breaths.
Yes. But honestly, ladies, this also does not mean we're not holding you accountable either. There are many women who also fall short when it comes to emotional intelligence. Just like men, this can also lead to problematic behaviors. Women with low emotional intelligence may struggle with understanding their emotions in a more precise manner. If you're not able to label your emotions, how do you expect yourself to distinguish them? This alone can lead to uncontrolled reactions. Let me see. I want to set an example for you guys. Okay. So let's say we have a woman who is frustrated because her partner has been spending a lot of time on their phone. She tries to overlook her frustration. However, by not taking the time to understand her emotions, she allows her frustration to build up. Now, she's confronting her partner about being on their phone for extensive periods of time and begins to make assumptions as to what her partner was doing throughout this time. Do you guys see where the problem is here? And please do not tell me it began with her partner being on the phone for a long time. The problem here was that she did not take the time to listen and understand her emotions. Had she taken the time to identify and understand them, she'd be able to recognize that what she was feeling was not frustration, but loneliness, jealousy, or insecurity about who her partner was texting. Maybe in that moment she wanted to spend time with them, or maybe she was feeling worried that they may be cheating due to traumas, or maybe she felt confused and curious as to why they were on their phone for so long. Had she taken the time to distinguish the cause of her frustration, she'd be able to communicate to her partner what is bothering her in a healthy manner, avoiding any additional frustration and doubts. And that goes for men too.
Yes, honestly, we can all be on the same boat here. And I really appreciate the example that you used. I feel like when you are able to identify and recognize your emotions and correctly label them, it allows more room for progress and it opens the door for communication.
Yes, because you're able to regulate your emotions. When you are able to understand the way that you're feeling, it helps you regulate your emotions. This alone helps you find a way to simply address the problem.
And in a healthy manner.
Exactly.
Okay, so say I were in her shoes and you are on your phone for an extensive period of time. Now, I already have trust issues. It could be because of my past relationships. It could be due to my upbringing. Anything really. But the point is, I have trust issues.
Okay. Like, where are we going?
And I see that you're on your phone. I mean, how rude, right? And it's starting to make me feel weird. I'm starting to feel something in my body. Mm-hmm. I feel strongly about it. But I can't seem to put a finger on it. What is it? I don't know. But I'm focused on this feeling of frustration, right? Because I simply can't put my finger on it. In this moment, I'm not thinking about my traumas. I'm not thinking about what I have experienced in my past relationships, partners cheating and whatnot. I'm just focused on that frustration.
And in that, you're not allowing yourself to recognize why you are feeling frustrated.
Exactly.
And that alone can lead you to feeling even more frustrated.
Yes, and it starts to make me panic almost. It starts aching at me. Then my mind naturally starts playing all of these different scenarios. Oh, she's cheating. Oh, she doesn't love me. She doesn't want to be with me. At this point, I start creating my own narrative. It is no longer about what is, but about what could be.
Which is something you never want to do, because that's only going to set you up for failure.
Which is what we previously spoke about.
Yes. Oh gosh, everything is like tied in at the end of the day.
And it's funny because instead of grounding myself, thinking about the situation and asking myself questions like, what is it that I'm feeling?
You kind of have to give yourself therapy.
Yes, you have to take a step back and kind of go through everything step by step.
Yes.
Okay, I'm obviously feeling something. What is it? What is causing it, right? From there, I can start thinking about my past experiences. Okay, well, I've dealt with this in the past. Maybe that's why I'm feeling this way. Maybe this is why I'm feeling insecure. Maybe this is why I'm feeling worried. So, what can I do? After you've established what you are feeling and the cause of those feelings, you can ask yourself, okay, how do I move forward? What can I do to alleviate these feelings? What can I do to ease my doubts or concerns? What would be the ideal way to address this?
And because you are grounded, it is also the best time to communicate how you are feeling versus feeling so overwhelmed and allowing those emotions to carry on to the point of breaking and just behaving in an irrational manner. The number one thing that you always have to do is tune in with your emotions. As difficult as it may be, it's so important to take a look at the impact of your emotions and just aim for regulation, not repression. Repressing your emotions is not going to allow you to move forward. It can constantly keep you in a cycle of repetitive behaviors that are simply not good for you.
And so in this scenario, I feel like the best thing to do would be to allow yourself time. Go on a walk. Do anything that will help ground you, something that will help keep you calm enough to process everything in a healthy way. But just make sure to prioritize giving it some thought.
And take some time to really identify what you are feeling and accept all of your emotions for what they are.
Yes, and once you've wrapped your finger on it, you can then decide to approach your partner and have a conversation with them. Open up a conversation. Now, I realize that there are a lot of partners that...
Or family members or anything else for that matter.
Yes, anyone really. I'm glad you pointed that out. But I do realize that a lot of people may not be supportive of your transparency and vulnerability. They may not be willing to have these healthy conversations. They may very well feel attacked when you bring it up. But sometimes it's still very important for you to take that step. They may not be putting in their part, but the important thing to recognize is that you did your part in opening up that conversation in a respectful manner.
That alone can honestly lead you back to, like, how do I say it? Because I've kind of been there. So I feel like when you're kind of shut down by the other person, that alone leads you back through that cycle of like unhealthy thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It can very easily kind of bring you back to that frustration.
It's like a portal, right? You've chosen courage. You've chosen vulnerability. You've taken that step in the right direction just to be shut down.
Yes.
And the other person is refusing to make an effort. So it takes you back through that portal. You've been set back. It happens to all of us, really. It brings all of those negative feelings back and leads you back to your initial beliefs. This very moment can almost confirm and validate that they don't love you or that they are probably cheating on you, causing you to react based on emotion, but not in the right way.
It's so important for you to just ground yourself during these uncomfortable, confusing, and hurtful situations. Don't allow your emotions to control you. Don't allow your emotions to create the outcome that you were so afraid of, or even worse. You just never want to react on emotion. It's so unhealthy.
Yes, you never want to react to negative emotions.
Thank you for that. Well said.
Let's focus on that, because I feel like in society, we are often taught to never make decisions based on emotions.
That's true.
Keyword never. And I think we forget that there are very healthy emotions that can help us in many situations.
That's very true.
And so let's focus on specifically saying that we shouldn't react based on negative emotions.
Thank you for that.
Let's not react negatively to emotions. If we were to make decisions based on no emotions, it'd be this terrible thing where no one would be understanding or compassionate towards one another. That is the problem with people that focus so much on being quote unquote logical. They make decisions that only serve them. And we really need to be able to find that perfect balance. Making decisions with your mind and not your heart isn't always the smartest thing to do.
Yes, 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 and yes.
Snap, 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 snap.
Finger snaps. So one thing that I feel is very important, and the primary reason that we chose this topic, is because we want to help you guys expand your emotional vocabulary. I created a poll on Instagram this last week, and I asked people, how many emotions can you name at the top of your head? The options that I had stated were 1 to 4 emotions, 5 to 9, or 10 and more. I was actually really surprised that there were only about 2 people that could name 10 or more emotions. There was about 6 to 7, I believe, that said 5 to 9 emotions, and 4 people that could name 1 to 4 emotions. Whew, I'm catching my breath. Barbara and I actually decided to research this and discovered that the emotions that many people primarily use are happy, sad, and angry. And this was so interesting to me because those were the only three emotions that I was able to resonate with before expanding my emotional vocabulary. Both Barbara and I have prioritized expanding our emotional vocabulary and actually have a list on our phones. So every time we feel an emotion, we look at our list in order to put a specific label on that emotion that we're feeling in order to understand it in a more specific manner. I'm trying to think of an example for you guys. So let's say I'm feeling happy because we just uploaded a new podcast. Sure, maybe I'm feeling happy, but a better word to describe the happiness would be grateful, optimistic, relieved, or even joyful. There's so many different words that we can use to define our emotions. When we have a limited emotional vocabulary, it keeps us from truly understanding our emotions. If you tell yourself you're feeling angry, which again is a secondary emotion, you have to focus on the primary emotion that basically led you to feeling this anger. Maybe you were feeling understood, betrayed, hurt, or even offended. It's important to recognize these specific labels for describing how you are feeling. They can really help you in your day-to-day life, honestly. It can help others understand you as well. If I'm speaking with Barbara and I tell her, "Oh, I'm feeling angry," how is she supposed to help me or understand me if that's all I'm telling her?
There's just no way of working with that. There's no way of working with anger. I feel like as soon as you're telling me that you are angry or behaving in an angry manner, it can immediately make me want to step away. It doesn't leave room for a conversation, for progress. It's more of, I'm angry and that's it. I'm just letting you know, by the way. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I lost my train of thought. You're wanting, it's more about you wanting to make a statement, really. But you aren't open to resolving the problem in that moment.
It's true, honestly. Yes, it's more like, I'm angry, but that's it.
Yeah, there's nothing more to it, right?
Exactly.
Now, if you were to communicate that you are hurt, then that allows me room to take a step back and to reflect. Did I do something hurtful? Or I can ask the necessary questions to try to figure out what is the root issue. It really helps me understand you.
Yes. And this actually works with feeling sad too. Am I feeling sad or am I feeling hopeless? Because they are two very different things. Maybe I'm feeling gloomy, lonely, insecure, or heartbroken about a certain situation. Maybe I'm feeling remorseful about something that I did and it makes me sad. There are so many different words that you can use for your emotions, and I think that it's so important for us to use them.
And the moment that we are able to create these very specific labels for what we are feeling is, again, the moment that we are able to better understand ourselves. It is also what will allow us or others to see us.
And it also helps us see ourselves.
Yep, exactly. And we need that. We are allowing ourselves to be seen by being able to vocalize exactly what we are feeling. This is crucial for maintaining a healthy relationship with others, and most importantly, it helps the relationship with ourselves.
It takes a great deal of reflection. Every single emotion tells you something. You really have to take the time to listen to it and listen to the message that emotion is trying to give you.
Something else to consider is that your body also does a lot of the talking for you, depending on what it is that you are feeling. For example, if you're feeling any kind of sadness, you typically feel it in your throat, your chest, your stomach maybe.
Even your posture can be affected by how you're feeling.
Yes, sad people tend to hunch a lot more, than happy and confident people. As you can see, this is another way for you to identify what you are feeling. Pay attention to your body. What is your body telling you? Sometimes when you are feeling anxious or nervous, your feet will tell you.
Exactly. And then you start shaking, or your hands start trembling, or sometimes even your heart starts racing.
So again, pay attention to your body. Body language is very important. It can tell you a story, but it's not something that we usually learn. We ignore it, but it is very helpful to be able to read body language so that we can understand ourselves and other people.
Yes, thank you for that. Going back to emotional vocabulary, there are many other words to describe our emotions that go far beyond the labels that we have grown up with.
All in all, we all have to prioritize understanding our emotions. We can start with improving our emotional vocabulary. If it takes looking up an emotional intelligence vocabulary list, please do it. That's what we've actually done lately. But you will be able to find an endless amount of words to replace general words like sadness, happiness, and anger. These specific emotions will help guide you, and it will help better our emotional and mental health overall.
Exactly. I challenge you guys to start today. Save a picture of this list in your phone, and the next time that you find yourself struggling to figure out what emotion you're feeling, go back to that list. Refer back to it many times throughout your day. If you don't know what one of the words means, but it feels right, Google it. Yesterday, I remember telling Barbara that I was feeling kind of just
Heavy.
heavy. Yes, I kept using the word heavy. And so I told her, you know what? Let me go to my list because I need a moment to figure out what emotion I am feeling. So I remember referring back to that emotion, and I use the word, I'm like bringing it up right now because I don't even remember what word I used. Disheartened, I believe it was.
Yes, exactly.
I use the word disheartened. Now, the word disheartened, was it disheartened?
I think behearted.
No. I'm like over here trying to look for
Disheartened.
Disheartened, yes.
There you go.
Sorry, guys.
As you guys can see, it takes a lot of practice
We're
to
learning.
memorize the words and to apply them to your vocabulary.
Yes, but I ended up telling Barbara that I was feeling disheartened. Disheartened means having lost determination or confidence. And in that moment, I kept telling myself I felt heavy. But what I really felt was loss of determination and lack of confidence. And so once I was able to understand this emotion, I was able to come to her and explain it to her and just talk about that emotion.
I feel like pinpointing exactly what you were feeling just really helped find the root issue.
It did, honestly. It really, really did. And so we ended up just hugging it out. You kind of helped guide me through it and just understand it. And then I felt better.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was the most fastest way that I've ever been able to understand my emotions. I don't think I've ever understood my emotions so quickly.
Right. And it's great because it really helped alleviate that heavy feeling.
Oh, yes. Right away, too. So that's my challenge. That's our challenge for you guys.
Yes.
We challenge you guys to go online, look up a emotional vocabulary list, and start expanding your emotional vocabulary. It's honestly so, so, so important. And you guys will thank us later.
And we would really appreciate it if you were to share your experience with us.
Yeah, just let us know how that's been helping you out and if you've felt any changes in your day-to-day life by simply changing the words that you use throughout your day to describe your emotions. So with that being said, we do have an update for you guys. we will no longer be posting Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we will be posting Tuesdays and Sundays. So it's still twice a week, but one day changed.
Yes. So,
Again, thank you guys for listening. We're honestly so grateful for you guys. We are so happy to be here. I'm feeling very motivated and very optimistic about our podcast.
and I'm feeling happy. I'm just kidding.
No, really, how are you feeling?
No, I would say that I am feeling, going back to the list, let's see. I am feeling content, enthusiastic, and yes, very grateful to have you, to have something to look forward to.
Yes, it's honestly been so exciting just coming into the studio and recording.
And we really hope that this specific episode is able to help you, and I hope that it's as enlightening as it was for both Brianna and I to
Just learn about it.
about
all.
it.
Yes. So again, thank you guys for listening. We are so grateful for you. Go download that list, and we will see you guys on Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.